Guys, I have a kind of a confession to make.
Should I really tell them this? I don't know.
Screw it, I'm gonna do this. Even though I run this pro-science channel and take on misinformation and conspiracies, I still get pretty creeped out by the idea of drinking weird chemicals. So when RFK Jr. tweeted this on, I guess it's not a tweet now, it's excrement? I don't know, but this hit a nerve for me. Fluoride is an industrial waste associated with arthritis, bone fractures, bone cancer, IQ loss, neurodevelopmental disorders, and thyroid disease. That's pretty freaking scary. And now it's really confession time.
Bad idea, don't tell them this part.
Screw it, here's the truth. As a person who was into wellness for many years, I avoided fluoride products because of stuff like this. It's true, I hadn't looked too closely into the science, but I figured better safe than sorry. Probably best to just stay away from the industrial waste, right? So I used fluoride-free toothpaste and fluoride-free mouthwash. I was in a rural area, so it wasn't really in my water. So for something like 10 years, I don't think I got any fluoride at all. And guess what? Did I get a single cavity in that time? Yes, I did. Lots of them.
Right there, and also another one out there, and there's actually two.
So many cavities, I've lost count. I think my mouth is mostly made of fillings at this point, but I was protected against the dangers of fluoride. One less weird chemical in my body, good trade-off. So my knee-jerk reaction to this tweet was, yeah, maybe it's not just the brainworms talking. That's a long list of bad things, and I don't like bad things. I wasn't even gonna make this video. I don't enjoy constantly challenging my beliefs and assumptions. It's uncomfortable. It's the reason I made this channel in the first place. Okay, fine. Let's dive into the toxic pool of controversy and drink from the fountain of fluoridated knowledge. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more ways to watch me suffer. Taking a closer look, RFK's ex-tweetion reached about 24 million people, plus subsequent interviews where he clarified that he really does hate fluoride.
You would seek to ban fluoride in the U.S. water supply?
I think fluoride is on the way out because of that court decision. I think the faster that it goes out, the better. But I'm going to advise the water districts that fluoride will disappear.
It may already be invisible, but come on, you know what he meant. Now, if you're wondering what court case he's referring to, you'll have to click on the link and watch an hour-long video. Here it is.
Do you realize that fluoridation is the most monstrously conceived and dangerous communist plot we have ever had to face?
Whoops, wrong movie. The link actually takes you to this professional-looking news site with this professional news anchor guy reading some pretty terrifying news. So God, I hate scary movies. Oh. I'm gonna watch this all the way through, because RFK told me to. And if you want to suffer with me, there's a link to the full video in the description. Or if you just want to save some time, I'll put myself in montage mode. Let's see, the montage button is here.
New concerns about fluoride in drinking water. A federal ruling is questioning how much of it is safe.
There is a link between higher levels of fluoride exposure and lower IQ in kids.
Decades worth of studies indicating harm from fluoride.
World-changing ruling. And the court finds there is an unreasonable risk of such injury. Public health has been rocked to the core.
Dialysis patients were being poisoned within one day. One accident, one day, you have poisoning in the community. They have died when you have an overfeed of fluoridation chemicals into the drinking water. And you point me to any study that shows that water fluoridation is safe? No. A spontaneous hip fracture.
Almost to a death sentence.
Give them more fluoride, their bones are weaker. Bone fracture, hip fracture, and pathological effects, dental fluorosis, bone cancer, osteosarcoma.
This is a devastating situation.
Bone fracture, fluoride, which is a very toxic ion, causes a mineralization disorder, bone disease, and EPA did not protect people.
Debilitating, crippling joint damage.
Crippling skeletal fluorosis, where the spine is completely fused. You have muscle wasting, you have nerve compression.
Extremely painful.
Overt systemic poisoning of the body.
This should be absolutely shocking to everybody.
It can cause permanent deficits. The elderly brain is also vulnerable.
You would have to have rocks in your head.
You need to have rocks in your head. You need to have rocks in your head to allow your kid much more than 2 parts per million. We don't want toxic chemicals getting to the brain.
Is it over? Wow! Holy f***ing Fluoride. So, fluoride causes brain damage, dementia, arthritis, thyroid problems, kills people on dialysis, breaks your bones, and puts holes in your teeth.
I would have to have rocks in my head to use fluoride.
I'm honestly not sure what to believe right now. I mean, I'm trying to be skeptical on this channel, right? So maybe I should be skeptical of fluoride.
Is this stuff safe? And why is my head so echoey inside? Are there any rocks in here?
I gotta know. I gotta do my own research. Okay, fluoride exposed. This is the truth pill I need. Wait a minute. Is this a trick? This website says fluoride exposed, but it's all about science. Who made this anyway? Let's see. Click here, contact us. Oh.
Hello?
Hi, did you create this website?
Yep. I'm one of the science moms at Fluoride Exposed.
Okay, I thought it was going to expose the truth about fluoride, but instead it's just a bunch of science facts.
Gotcha. You are not the first person we've tricked with the name of our website. It's part of our scheme to help everyone question the assumptions they make and think critically about the science.
Hey, I don't want science, I want the truth.
I think you need science. I also think you need some history. The science history of fluoride is actually fascinating.
Wait, is it actually toxic waste?
Fluoride is the major ion of an element on the periodic table, so it's a lot of things. It's also in a lot of places because it's the 13th most common element in the Earth's crust. And that's why it's an all-natural mineral found in spring water all across the world.
And is it also a poison that causes cancer and eats your brain?
Too much of anything can poison you, even water.
Too much water can kill you? Is that really a thing?
That's really a thing. But if you drank a lethal dose of fluoridated tap water, the water itself would kill you before the fluoride did.
So what you're saying is now I should be scared of all water?
No, but you should take water safety seriously. Bring a friend when you go swimming. Wear your life jacket. Can I tell you the science history now?
Sorry. Go ahead.
Let's talk about what life was like for our grandparents' and great-grandparents' teeth before fluoride. Community water fluoridation and fluoride toothpaste didn't really get going until the late 1950s. Before that, people had serious tooth problems.
Yeah, no idea what that's like.
I mean really serious. Teeth were practically an endangered species. In a famous study during World War II, 15% of young men couldn't get into the military because they didn't have the minimum number of teeth. And the minimum was only 3 pairs of front teeth and 3 pairs of back teeth, which means this guy was considered ready for duty.
Wow, that is a pretty low bar.
And even still, 9 out of 10 who passed were missing so many teeth that they needed dentures or bridges.
And I thought dentures were just for old people.
Back then, they were basically for everyone. Teenagers commonly had dentures, and most older folks had no teeth at all.
None?
Yep. 2/3 of Americans, 75 and older, were completely toothless.
Yikes. It was just a normal thing to lose all your teeth?
Yes, except in a few places where it mysteriously wasn't such a problem. Places like Colorado Springs, where people had a lot fewer cavities and no one knew why.
Oh, I think I know the answer.
Shh! It was a mystery. In some places where people had really strong teeth, they also had discoloration. That was called Colorado brown stain. In the 1930s, dentists and chemists figured out that it was caused by a natural mineral in the water, fluoride. So they renamed the staining fluorosis.
So then people had to choose between brown teeth or no teeth.
Turns out they didn't have to. After a lot of careful and groundbreaking epidemiological research, scientists figured out a sweet spot, 1 part per million. Not enough to stain your teeth, but enough to prevent cavities. And by 1945, they were ready to start public trials.
Public trials where they started experimenting on people without their consent?
Not at all. The first trial in Grand Rapids was a real community effort with schools and teachers and parents. The whole town was involved.
So people didn't protest having these chemicals dumped in their water?
Well, a few people did, and that's kind of a funny story. As soon as fluoridation was supposed to start, the water operator got phone calls from a handful of residents with terrible side effects. Sore gums, teeth falling out, peeling enamel.
Ooh, fluoride caused all that, huh?
That's the funny part. Those folks didn't realize there had been a delay getting the equipment running, and fluoridation didn't actually start until the week after they made all those complaints.
Whoops. Well, was anybody else upset about it?
The people who really weren't happy were in the control city. The trial was supposed to last 10 years, comparing Grand Rapids, who got fluoride, to the town of Muskegon, who got nothing. Well, similar to when a new cancer treatment shows such positive results that it's considered unethical to continue the study and deny people a life-saving treatment, the children's teeth at the 5-year mark were so much better that dentists insisted on getting this teeth-saving public health measure. Muskegon started to fluoridate in 1951, and more cities all over the country soon followed suit.
Wow, what a plot.
Yeah, a plot to protect children's teeth. It protects adults too. Fluoridated water is delivering a teeny amount of the same kind of fluoride ions you get when you brush. But with fluoridated water, you get those cavity-fighting fluoride ions onto your teeth all throughout the day. It is also one of the top 10 public health achievements of the 20th century. This January is going to be the 80th anniversary of Grand Rapids kicking off community water fluoridation. And study after study after study since then has shown that fluoridated water is healthy.
Yeah, see, that's not what I just heard from RFK.
No, the anti-fluoride activists will tell you a very different story. And sometimes they're very convincing. They managed to convince the city council in Calgary, Alberta. In 2011, Calgary took fluoride out of the water.
Oh, really? So what happened?
Well, we have the data and can compare it to the nearby town of Edmonton, who kept their fluoride the whole time.
Okay, like the opposite of the Grand Rapids experiment.
Exactly the opposite. Take 2 towns with fluoride, remove it from one, and watch people's teeth get worse. It was a disaster. The number of children with cavities jumped from under 50% to over 65%. And the number of extreme cases that called for general anesthesia nearly doubled. After 10 years of this, the city of Calgary voted to reintroduce fluoride.
Hey, that's kind of a reason to smile, right?
Ooh, I think you need to see a dentist.
What?
No, really, I know a great dentist you should talk to.
Is it really that bad?
Yes, these anti-fluoride lawyers you've been listening to are really that bad. Dr. Johnny Johnson has been going up against these guys for years. He knows all their tricks and he knows the science. Anyway, I got to get back to writing about fluoride science history.
Wait, just one more question.
Really, talk to Johnny.
But...
Bye.
Okay, bye. She's gone. But... hello?
Hi, this is Dr. Johnny Johnson.
Oh, did Effie tell you to call me?
Yes, she did.
She was great. We were just getting into some lively...
Johnny, help me get rid of this guy. He won't stop bugging me about fluoride.
Oh, no. I just had a few questions about the safety, that's all.
Now you're going to have to talk to me.
Yes, sir.
I'm just kidding, bud. We have these conversations all the time. I'm the president of the American Fluoridation Society, and this is what I do.
American Fluoridation Society. Wait, so you're like a paid industry shill?
I didn't even know what that word was until I got involved with fluoridation. Actually, I'm just a volunteer. I do this for free. I love it.
Are you sure you're not being paid off by Big Fluoride?
Not a dime. If you wonder who's making the big bucks, take a look at the guy who produced the video you were watching, Bigtree. He earns almost $290,000 a year as the CEO of his anti-vax company, ICANN. And the lawyer, Michael Connett, you know lawyers don't come cheap. And look at this anti-fluoridation dentist they featured. The guy brags about being one of the top 1% paid dentists in the world. He only works 24 hours a week. Others in his circle of fluoridation opponents, FOs, claim that water fluoridation causes psychological harm in kids and teens by making their teeth turn brown, yellow, and pitted. That's completely false. Studies do not bear that out. Nonetheless, they'll cut the teeth down, take the healthy enamel away, place a tooth-colored veneer, and they cost $10,000 to $20,000. And by their own admission, that treatment only lasts about 15 years. These folks really torque me off.
So you know all of these guys already?
No, yeah. The FOs are like a traveling circus. Same clowns go from town to town, trying to cause trouble and scare the holy crap out of everybody, just like they did in Calgary.
Yeah, I heard about that from Effie.
Well, in every city council or county commission, the FOs pull out their fake charts and cherry-pick data. I'm right there too. Either me or one of our other volunteers from AFS.
Huh, so you just follow along behind the circus?
Absolutely, wherever they go. And frankly, we mop the floor with the FOs every single time because we've got state-of-the-art science behind us. And these clowns are still talking about Manhattan Project. There's some low-quality studies from the 70s.
Okay, so I kind of wanted to ask you about all of that.
All of what?
Well, the everything.
The everything?
Yeah, you know, the bone fractures, the cancer, the IQ loss, thyroid disease, dementia, killing dialysis patients, fluorosis.
Yeah, what about acne and gray hair?
Oh, come on, I'm being serious.
So am I. They actually claimed that at a meeting I was at, and I had to explain to the commissioner that my gray hairs are all from my daughters and not fluoride.
Okay, well, add those to the list then.
Their list is longer than both my arms outstretched. The only thing the FOs don't claim yet are ingrown toenails. They'll add it to their list one day.
Okay, but what's your answer to that long list?
You want me to answer every single conspiracy theory about fluoride?
Yeah, you know, just all of them.
Coleman, you just watch what? That hour-long Gish Gallop?
A little over an hour, yeah.
You do know that his daddy started the FO group in this country, don't you?
Oh, really?
And it's all what daddy said over and over again, and it's all been refuted. Well, if I was to answer everything he said in that 1 hour, it would take me 10 hours at least, because I've got real studies and real data, and going through it all to understand science takes time. I don't just spew out some factoids and then change the subject every 5 minutes like an ADD bull with diarrhea.
Wow, that's kind of graphic. So you could really talk about this for 10 hours?
So I could talk about this for weeks. I could read chapter and verse from the studies that these jokers are abusing and correct every single fact that they get wrong.
We probably don't need to take weeks.
But here's the bottom line. Leading health and scientific organizations around the world endorse fluoridation as effective in reducing cavities and perfectly safe. You want to know the number of credibly recognized scientific and health organizations that oppose it? Goose egg.
Wait. I think you're doing a fallacy. That's called argument from authority, right?
Actually, I'm doing science, and it's called peer review. Argument from authority would be because I said so. But the scientific consensus is because the data says so.
Oh man, I thought I had you there.
Yeah, many have tried.
Okay, but about the everything.
How about this? Why don't you just pick one thing out of the everything? What's the most important claim that you want to know about?
Well, the IQ thing seemed pretty front and center. Fluoridated water reduces children's IQ by like 5 points.
Okay, what was their proof?
They said the judge said so, and then they changed the subject.
Argument from authority, huh?
Touché.
Judges are good at interpreting law, but not at interpreting science. That's where we step in. All right, let's do this.
I'm ready.
No, I don't think you are.
Well, let's do it anyway.
All right. There have been 108 previous lawsuits to stop fluoridation since it began in 1945. Tried on grounds of mass medication, infringement on personal rights, informed consent, everything you could think of. And every one of those suits has failed because it's perfectly legal and safe. Well, this is the 109th court case. And once again, the judge did not order fluoridation to stop. Oh, the FOs can try and call this a victory, but they actually didn't get what they wanted. All the judge did was refer this case back to the EPA and said the scientists need to evaluate the potential risk and not ignore it. Well, they were going to do that anyway. It's the EPA, and they already do that on a regular basis.
Okay, and what the EPA now has to evaluate is this report showing that fluoride lowers IQ, right?
This was a linchpin of the court case, the National Toxicology Program's monograph. The judge mentioned it over 120 times in his findings.
And it showed a link between fluoridated water and lower IQ, right?
Nah, that's the kicker. It didn't. The NTP document states clearly on page 3, their monograph does not apply to fluoride levels used in the U.S. and Canada.
Huh. So what was the big finding then?
There really wasn't one. I read the entire report, and I don't see anything in it to be concerned about. Most of the studies that the NTP looked at were from countries that have high natural fluoride levels, multiple times of what we have. The studies that they focused on, though, were ones from Canada that used a flawed method of measuring fluoride in pregnant mothers. Those studies were conducted by a primary researcher, Christine Till. Till and some of her co-authors were making public statements that pregnant mothers who drank fluoridated water during pregnancy were having children with lower IQs. But interestingly, just this past week, Till reversed her stance and stated there's not enough evidence of a link at lower levels of exposure.
Wow, this is sounding more and more like a great big nothing sandwich.
With fries, because we've got studies from all over the world showing it's perfectly safe. Well-designed studies show no association whatsoever between fluoridation and children's IQ.
Wow. You know, in the video, they really made it sound like they had more of a smoking gun than this.
Yeah. Well, maybe they were smoking something else.
Well, thanks. I actually feel better now.
Oh, good. You know, it's a lot easier to scare people than it is to unscare them. But folks, relax. Take a deep breath, drink a glass of water, It's not going to kill you. I promise. We've been studying fluoridation since 1901, and if any of the data showed a real problem, I'd be the first one to sound the alarm. I would never allow my grandbabies to drink fluoridated water if there were any harm from it.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome. Don't forget to brush.
I won't.
And floss.
I will.
And get regular checkups.
Okay.
Use
All right, I'm afraid that's all the time we have. Bye-bye. Well, he was nice.
Maybe fluoride's not so bad after all. Still got an echo in here, though.
You know, I feel like that was the mental flossing I needed. It's like a light bulb just went on. That was my fill light. I forgot to turn that on earlier. Whoops, that's a lot better. I feel like I could watch this video again and this time use the rest of my brain, not just the amygdala, and maybe, just maybe, debunk a thing or two.
The international communist conspiracy to sap and impurify all of our precious bodily fluids.
Whoops, sorry, I don't know how that keeps slipping in there. I meant, let's take another look at this professional news website.
Remember, fluoride was one of the, if not greatest, public health achievements of all time.
Ooh, little unprofessional sarcasm there. Also, little correction. What he meant to say is that fluoridation is in the CDC's top 10 public health achievements of the 20th century.
And now it's not so much because of a court ruling.
That's not so much how science works. That achievement's still on the list, right up there with vaccines. We all agree about those, right?
And this is what it looked like in the news.
New concerns about fluoride in drinking water.
A federal judge in California has ordered the Environmental Protection Agency to address the potential impacts.
Researchers determined, quote, with moderate confidence, that there is a link between higher levels of fluoride exposure and lower IQ in kids.
And that is just some of the media coverage.
Right, just some of it, because he left some other things out. If you do your own research and look at the rest of the media coverage, they also said this.
However, that's when it's found at twice the recommended limit.
And this.
With moderate confidence. However, the report did not say how big an impact it has on IQ.
And of course, even that moderate confidence just evaporated. As Dr. Johnny said, the researchers just reversed their public statements.
Unfortunately, the CDC and the American Dental Association have ignored decades worth of studies indicating harm from fluoride.
You gotta love how they just slipped this guy into their news montage as an unnamed authority on the subject, but this is actually the FO that Dr. Johnny warned me about, Griffen Cole. And yes, according to his own presentation, he makes more money than 99% of real dentists by making his patients pay out of pocket and fear-mongering about mercury and fillings and the dangers of sunscreen. And doing that research thing, I just found the rest of his news interview that they cut out. I guess it's too crazy even for this show.
And I know this is a bold statement to say, but fluoride is unnecessary. You know, oral health reports from all over the world show that fluoride is actually ineffective.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Fluoride doesn't prevent cavities. There have been thousands and thousands of studies proving that over the past 100 years. And this overpaid fake dentist just
have ignored decades worth of studies.
Okay. We made it past the scary news montage, and now it's time to get into the meat and potatoes. Speaking of which, does this Jackson guy look a little bit undernourished to you? Like maybe his diet consists of mostly supplements and not actual food? Anyway, it's time for him to meet his hero.
The attorney, Michael Conant, who is responsible for having this ruling come down.
Jeffrey, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And they waste no time getting right into the most important issue.
It dealt with lowering children's IQ.
And I think most people watching would be horrified at the idea of children being harmed.
So I think a lot of the people watching may say, well, I'm not a child. My children are grown up, so we don't have to worry about that lowering IQ business.
Are the people watching this psychopaths? Who would say that? Oh, will somebody please not think of the children? Who gives a about them? Think instead of this poor malnourished man.
But there's a lot of other issues with fluoride in the human body than just lowering children's IQ.
And that was it. Blink and you missed it, because after bringing up the IQ thing, they immediately pivot to anything else.
I want to lay this out in a fashion that someone could take this and just send it to a family member and say, oh, by the way, you may want to check into this too.
Now, if you have a family member who hates you enough to have sent you that video, you have every right to send them this video in reply, and you shouldn't even feel bad about it. They totally have it coming.
So let's take a historical perspective on this really quick. A lot of people know the Manhattan Project from maybe the film Oppenheimer.
That's the ticket. Why get into the latest state-of-the-art science you don't understand when you could just play the oldies on repeat?
It's declassified in 1995.
In the 40s,
Purposeful government misinformation, 1956.
in the 1970s, in the 40s, the 1980s, early 1980s,
So let's go back, the 40s, 50s, 60s, and into the 80s.
in the 1950s,
1942.
50s and 60s, in the 1980s. In the 1970s, back in the 30s, 40s,
1944.
in the 1980s, 1942, 1943, in 1942,
In 1968.
back in the 40s.
Gee, I wonder who taught these guys all their classic hits.
It's the case against fluoride. I looked at the author, Paul Conant. Is there any relation there?
Yes, Paul Conant is my father. We have worked very closely together on the fluoride issue.
Like father, like son.
Growing up in the 80s, my dad had this big metal water distiller, and it was just known. You just drink the water that comes out of there.
Now, this next part of the video I thought was too stupid to even show you, but the stick man insisted.
This next clip I want to show, I want people to remember this next clip.
Okay, you asked for it.
This is Paul Price.
In the 1980s, Dr. Price circulated at the EPA a mock press release.
A mock press release, as in a joke, like an April Fool's prank the guy played at his office.
So here in this clip, I deposed Paul Price.
Yes, this lawyer thought the joke was so serious he deposed the poor guy about it.
And what did you mean by it's cheaper for people to keep their mouths shut than to remove the fluoride?
I meant to be funny.
I don't find anything funny about that, do you?
These guys clearly don't get the concept of joke. But I was curious, so I wrote to Dr. Price and asked him a few things about the situation, and he very nicely took the time to write me back, and he clarified a few important points. One, it was definitely a joke. In addition to his day job at the EPA, he wrote humorous material for a local radio station. This particular piece he intended to be an inside joke, not ammunition for conspiracy theorists 40 years later. Second point, about his job at the EPA.
He is literally responsible for creating the EPA's definition, the standard. He wrote the standard. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on this.
Okay, you're wrong on this. The toxicology standard he's referring to was set by toxicologists. Paul Price just typed it up. His job at the time was guy at the typewriter. But even if he had personally set the standard, third point, this standard was not about fluoride as an additive. The EPA regulation was to limit those few places with naturally high fluoride. Any more than 4 parts per million had to be removed. There was some controversy about this, with some people arguing it should be even lower.
You need to have rocks in your head to allow your kid much more than 2 parts per million. Dr. Rowe responds, yeah, I think we'd all agree with that.
But there wasn't good data to back them up on that, so the standard stayed at 4. However, and this is important, all of this has very little to do with the water we actually drink, because fluoridated drinking water is regulated at 0.7, less than half of the maximum safe level. And in order to confuse one with the other,
you need to have rocks in your head.
You know, I could be watching cat videos right now.
18 years later, EPA has still not done anything about it.
I want to read something from the 80s.
Okay, time out. It's just like Dr. Johnny said. It would take like 10 hours to respond to every single point in this video. But also, like Dr. Johnny probably would have said if I hadn't hung up on him, consider the source. Let's zoom out. What is this Highwire news site RFK's tweet took us to? The Highwire is owned by one Bigtree. I remember now. Dude earns hundreds of thousands a year running the most well-funded anti-vax organization in the world. He's like personally responsible for bringing back classic hits like the measles. And to date, he's made 1,553 videos like this one called Are Anti-Vaxxers the Chosen Ones?
As I thought through the whole thing, I thought, well, are you under attack? Or is there a chance you're being chosen?
Hey, he's just asking questions, right? And also answering them.
You must be the chosen one.
And he knows that not because of science.
I started out as a movie writer. That's really, I've told you all, I don't have a background in medicine.
But because it makes a good story.
My first entree into Hollywood was I was a screenplay writer. So you write for the bad guy just like you write for the good guys.
And speaking of stories, along with the other 1,552 definitely not propaganda episodes of The Highwire, he also published a children's book.
As many of you know, we have a legal team, we do this show, and now we are a press company. This one is sure to make waves. I'm unvaccinated, and that's okay. A children's book.
Because that's how anti-propaganda he is. He's also good buddies with none other than RFK Jr. So it comes full circle. Circle of jerks. Circle of jerks, yeah. So I guess the moral of the story is, let's all be glad RFK and his goons are not in charge of our public health system, because boy, that would be bad. Can you imagine? We are so
Realize that in addition to fluoridating water, where there are studies underway to fluoridate salt, flour, fruit juices, soup, sugar, milk, ice cream,